The briefing room at Forward Operating Base Sentinel smelled of stale coffee, gun oil, and the particular musk of men who'd been training in 100-degree heat. Tactical maps covered every inch of wall space, satellite imagery pinned, alongside hand-drawn compound layouts. 20 of the Navy's finest SEAL operators filled the metal folding chairs, their attention locked on the man standing at the front. General Marcus Brennan commanded a room the way a conductor commands an orchestra, with absolute authority earned through blood and sacrifice. At 48, he was a legend in the special operations community. Silver threads streaked through his dark hair like battle ribbons, and his steel-gray eyes had witnessed things that would break lesser men. 3 tours in Iraq, 4 in Afghanistan, countless classified missions across the globe. The scar running from his left temple to his jaw told stories he'd never speak aloud. Phase 2 initiates at 400 hours, Brennan continued, his gravelly voice carrying the weight of command. Rodriguez, your sniper team establishes overwatch here. He tapped a ridge on the map with a calloused finger. The door opened. Every head turned. In the SEAL community, interrupting a mission brief was like spitting in church, simply not done. The figure that stepped through was unexpected in every way. Staff Sergeant Maya Chen stood 5'5" in her boots, her compact frame dwarfed by the doorway. She wore standard Army combat fatigues, desert tan and meticulously pressed despite the Forward Operating Base's primitive conditions. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, not a strand out of place. No unit patch adorned her sleeve, no rank visible on her collar, no badges, no tabs, no identifying markers whatsoever. A ghost. General Brennan stopped mid-sentence, his finger still pressed against the map. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Maya's boots clicked against the concrete floor as she moved to the back of the room, her movements economical and precise. She didn't apologize, didn't offer explanation, simply found an empty chair and stood beside it, waiting. "Who are you?" Brennan's voice could have etched glass. 20 elite SEALs watched the exchange like spectators at a prize fight. Some leaned back in their chairs, arms crossed. Others exchanged knowing glances. A few smirked. They'd seen this before, some desk jockey from headquarters thinking they belonged in an operator briefing. Maya met the general's gaze without flinching. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they held something Brennan couldn't quite identify. Not fear, not defiance exactly. Something. Calm, dangerous calm. "Staff Sergeant Maya Chen, sir. I'm assigned to this operation." Her voice was quiet but clear, with the faintest hint of a Western accent. Montana or Wyoming, Brennan's experienced ear told him. His jaw tightened, muscles working beneath tanned skin. "I authorized no such assignment." He enunciated each word carefully, the way a parent speaks to a misbehaving child. "This is a SEAL operation, a Tier 1 mission against a high-value target. What makes you think you belong in this room?" Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, Brennan's senior sniper, leaned toward the man beside him. $20 says she's a Terp," he whispered. "Translator or cultural advisor." "Nah," his teammate replied under his breath. "Intelligence analyst. Look at her, straight from some air-conditioned TOC." Maya heard them. Her expression didn't change. Brennan crossed his arms over his chest, biceps straining against his tan tactical shirt. 25 years of combat operations had carved his body into something between a weapon and a warning. "Let me guess," he said, his tone dripping with skepticism. "Intelligence liaison, translator, political officer here to make sure we color inside the lines." A few SEALs chuckled. One made a show of rolling his eyes. Maya remained still, her posture military perfect. Then, with deliberate slowness, she reached into her cargo pocket and withdrew a sealed envelope. The paper was crisp, official, bearing multiple classification stamps. She crossed the room, her boots clicking with measured precision, and extended it to Brennan. He snatched it from her hand, ripped the envelope open, and scanned the contents. His eyes moved rapidly across the page, then slowed, stopped, moved back to the top and read again. The room watched him crush the orders in his fist, knuckles white with pressure. "Specialized support personnel," he read aloud, his voice mocking. "That tells me exactly nothing." He turned to his executive officer, a barrel-chested lieutenant commander named Matthews. "Get command on the line, right now. I want to know who sent a—" "Sir," Maya's soft interruption cut through his building tirade like a scalpel through flesh. Brennan's head whipped around. "Did you just interrupt me, Sergeant?" "Yes, sir, I did." No apology in her voice. "Request permission to qualify on your range." The room erupted, not in shouts but in the barely suppressed sounds of professional warriors trying not to laugh. Snorts, coughs masking chuckles, the scrape of chairs as men shifted to get a better view of the spectacle. Rodriguez actually grinned. "Oh, this is gonna be good." Brennan stared at her for a long moment. In his decades of service, he developed an almost supernatural ability to read people, their fears, their strengths, their breaking points. But this woman, he couldn't get a read on her. She stood there, calm as still water, waiting for his response like she had all the time in the world. A cold smile crossed his weathered face. "You want to shoot with my operators?" He gestured to the SEALs around the room. "These men are the best marksmen in the United States military. They've qualified on every weapon system we have. They've made shots under conditions that would make most soldiers weep." "Yes, sir, I'm aware." "And you think you can hang with them?" "I know I can, sir." The room went absolutely silent, the kind of silence that precedes violence or revelation. Brennan's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. "Fine, Sergeant, you want to prove you belong here. Let's see what you've got." He checked his watch, a battered Luminox that had survived more firefights than most soldiers ever saw. "Range in 15 minutes. You fail to meet our standards and you're on the next helicopter out of here. We clear." "Crystal, sir." "Dismissed, all of you. I want to see what our specialized support personnel can do." The SEALs filed out, some shaking their heads, others placing quiet bets. Rodriguez paused at the door, glancing back at Maya with something between pity and curiosity. Maya remained standing, her expression unchanged, but deep in those dark eyes something flickered. Not doubt, not fear. Anticipation. General Marcus Brennan was about to learn a lesson that would change everything he thought he knew about assumptions, prejudice, and what excellence really looked like. The Barrett M82 was waiting. The Afghan sun hit like a physical blow as the group emerged from the air-conditioned briefing room. Heat shimmered off the packed dirt compound, creating wavy mirages in the distance. The temperature had already climbed past 110 degrees, and it wasn't even noon yet. General Brennan strode toward the firing range with the confident gait of a man who owned every piece of ground he walked on. His SEALs fell in behind him, a loose formation of the world's most dangerous men, their conversations peppered with speculation and barely concealed amusement. "I give her 3 shots before she quits," said Petty Officer Davis, a muscular operator from Georgia with a drawl as thick as molasses. "3? You're generous," Rodriguez replied, adjusting his baseball cap against the glare. "I say she doesn't even make it through weapons check. Probably never handled anything bigger than a 5.56. Maya walked alone, several paces behind the group. She carried a large, hardshell rifle case in one hand, moving with an easy stride that suggested the weight meant nothing to her. Her other hand carried a smaller case, ammunition, maintenance kit, ballistic data books, the essentials. She listened to their chatter, their assumptions, their dismissals. She'd heard it all before, every range, every unit, every mission. The script never changed, only the actors. The FOB's firing range was impressive by forward operating base standards, a 1,000-meter stretch of cleared desert with steel targets at varying distances. Berms had been constructed to contain fire, and a wooden observation tower provided elevated oversight. This wasn't some hastily assembled training area. This was where elite operators maintained their edge. Brennan stopped at the firing line, turning to face Maya with his arms crossed. The SEALs formed a semicircle around them, creating an arena of judgment. "Let me be clear about something, Sergeant," Brennan began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "I've been doing this for 25 years. I've trained with Delta, SAS, Mossad, GIGN, the best of the best. I've seen thousands of soldiers come through thinking they're hot shit because they qualified expert on some stateside range." He stepped closer, invading her personal space, a dominance play as old as warfare itself. "This isn't the United States. This isn't a controlled environment with perfect conditions and coaches holding your hand. Out here, you get one shot, maybe, wind gusts at 40 miles per hour, temperature swings of 50 degrees, dust storms that turn day into night, and people shooting back." His eyes bored into hers. "So forgive me if I'm not impressed by your enthusiasm." Maya stood her ground, her face a mask of professional calm. "Understood, sir." "Do you?" Brennan's voice rose slightly. "Because here's what I think. I think some colonel at headquarters looked at diversity metrics and decided my operation needed a woman. I think you've got decent paperwork and someone's recommendation, but zero business being here. I think you're going to waste my time, fail spectacularly, and I'll spend the next 6 hours on the phone explaining why you're going home." The SEALs watched in silence now. Some looked uncomfortable. Brennan was being harsh, even by his standards. Others nodded in agreement. Lieutenant Commander Matthews cleared his throat. "Sir, maybe we should just—" "No," Brennan cut him off. "She wanted this. She interrupted my brief. She requested this demonstration." He turned back to Maya. "So let's get it over with. What's your weapon?" Maya set down her cases and knelt beside the larger one. Her fingers moved to the latches with practiced precision. "Barrett M82A1, sir. .50 caliber, semi-automatic anti-materiel rifle." The latches clicked open. Rodriguez's eyebrows shot up. "Wait, what?" The lid lifted, revealing the weapon nestled in custom foam. Even in its disassembled state, the Barrett commanded respect. The massive barrel, the distinctive muzzle brake, the precision-machined receiver. This was a weapon built for one purpose: reaching out and touching someone at distances that made other rifles look like toys. "Holy shit," Davis whispered. Brennan's expression shifted minutely, the first crack in his dismissive facade. The Barrett M82 wasn't a weapon you just checked out from the armory. It cost $12,000, required specialized training, demanded respect and skill in equal measure. Its .50 BMG rounds could disable vehicles, punch through concrete, and reach targets over a mile away. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his tone less certain. "It's mine, sir. Personal weapon, registered and authorized." Maya began assembling the rifle with fluid, economical movements. Each piece slid into place with the soft clicks of precision engineering. No fumbling, no hesitation. Muscle memory refined through countless repetitions. The SEALs moved closer, their mockery evaporating. They were operators. They recognized competence when they saw it, even if they didn't want to admit it yet. "How many rounds through that barrel?" Rodriguez asked, his voice neutral now, professional. "Approximately 8,000, Chief." Maya locked the barrel assembly into the receiver. "I replaced it 6 months ago. Previous barrel had 15,000. Matthews let out a low whistle. That's a lot of trigger time." "Yes, sir." Brennan watched her work, his mind recalculating. 8,000 rounds through a Barrett meant serious training, serious commitment. The rifle alone was impressive, but the round count told a different story. This wasn't a trophy weapon or a range toy. This was a tool used by someone who lived behind a scope. Maya attached the bipod, secured the massive suppressor, and mounted the optic, a Schmidt and Bender 525x56 scope that cost nearly as much as the rifle itself. She performed a functions check, her movements automatic and sure. "Range officer," Brennan called out. "Set targets at 800, 1,000, and 1,200 meters." "Yes, sir." Brennan turned back to Maya, his arms still crossed but his stance less aggressive. "Standard qualification is 3 shots, 3 targets, 3 minutes. You get 5 rounds total, 2 spotters. Acceptable grouping is 10 inches at 1,000 meters. He paused. "For my snipers, anyway, I'll give you 15 inches. That seems fair." "Sir," Maya said quietly, slinging the Barrett across her back with practiced ease, "I won't need spotter rounds, and I'd like to request the most difficult shooting position available." The semicircle of SEALs exchanged glances. Rodriguez actually smiled, a genuine expression of interest replacing his earlier mockery. "Most difficult position," Brennan repeated. "Yes, sir. And if possible, add wind and adjust the targets to maximum realistic combat distance for this weapon system." Brennan stared at her for a long moment. Then, despite himself, a slight smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You've got balls, Sergeant. I'll give you that." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet." He turned to the range officer. "Move targets to 12, 14, and 1,600 meters. Standing position, no support. Wind is what it is." He looked back at Maya. "This is your show. Impress me or go home." Maya nodded once, adjusted her shooting glasses, and walked toward the firing line. The Barrett M82 was about to speak. And everyone was about to listen. The firing line stretched before Maya like a stage, and she was about to give the performance of her life. Not for glory, not for pride, simply because this was who she was, what years of sacrifice, sweat, and dedication had forged her into. She set the Barrett down gently on the weathered shooting bench, the weapon's 29 pounds settling with a solid thunk. The bench faced downrange toward the shimmering heat waves rising from the desert floor. Somewhere out there, beyond the visible horizon, 3 steel targets waited. Rodriguez climbed into the observation tower with a spotting scope, his earlier smirk replaced by professional curiosity. "Targets confirmed," his voice crackled over the radio. 1,200, 1,400, and 1,600 meters. Wind is gusting east to west, 15 to 22 miles per hour. Temperature 113 degrees. Maya didn't acknowledge the information. She was already calculating. The SEALs formed a loose group 30 feet behind the firing line, arms crossed, waiting. Brennan stood slightly apart, his experienced eyes watching every movement. He'd seen thousands of shooters in his career. The way they handled their weapons told him everything he needed to know about their training, their discipline, their potential. Maya opened her data book, a worn leather notebook filled with handwritten charts, environmental calculations, and ballistic tables. Some shooters relied entirely on electronic ballistic calculators. The truly skilled kept both digital and analog systems, knowing that batteries died and electronics failed in the field. She referenced pages dense with numbers, her finger tracing columns of data. Altitude, 3,200 feet. Temperature, 113 degrees F. Humidity, 12%. Barometric pressure, 29.8. Wind, variable, 1522 mph quartering from the east. Her lips moved silently, running calculations that would make most people's heads spin. The .50 BMG round traveled at roughly 2,800 feet per second, but at 1,600 meters, nearly a mile, gravity, wind, air density, and even the Earth's rotation came into play. The Coriolis effect alone could shift point of impact by several inches at that distance. "Whenever you're ready, Sergeant," Brennan called out, checking his watch. "Clock starts on your first shot." Maya closed the data book and removed her shooting glasses, replacing them with ballistic eyewear with amber lenses that cut the glare. She pulled a sun-bleached bandana from her pocket and tied it around her head to catch sweat before it could run into her eyes. Then she did something that made Rodriguez lean forward in the tower. She walked away from the shooting bench. "What's she doing?" Davis muttered. Maya moved to an open area of the range with zero support. No bench, no sandbags, no bipod rest. Just open ground baked hard as concrete by the relentless sun. She dropped into a kneeling position, her right knee on the ground, left foot planted forward. The Barrett's bipod legs extended, but found only air. "She's shooting unsupported," Matthews said, disbelief coloring his voice. "At 1,600 meters. Is she insane?" "No," Rodriguez said from the tower, his eye pressed to the spotting scope. "She's confident." Maya settled the Barrett against her shoulder, her left hand supporting the fore end, her right hand finding the pistol grip. The weapon weighed nearly 30 pounds loaded. Holding it steady without support required serious upper body strength and core stability. Her breathing slowed. Deep breath in through the nose, slow exhale through slightly parted lips. Her heart rate decreased, visible in the way her body settled into absolute stillness. Brennan found himself leaning forward unconsciously. He'd seen this before, the zone that elite shooters entered, where the world narrowed to nothing but the scope, the target, and the space between heartbeats. Through the scope, Maya's world transformed. The target at 1,200 meters appeared as a distant steel rectangle, heat shimmer making it dance and waver. She watched the mirage, reading the wind in the way the heat waves bent and flowed. The wind was tricky, gusting, variable, the kind that made even experienced shooters miss. She waited. Patience was the sniper's greatest virtue. The wind dropped momentarily, a window maybe 3 seconds long. The Barrett roared. The sound was apocalyptic, a concussive boom that rolled across the desert like thunder, sharp enough to feel in your chest even through ear protection. The muzzle brake channeled the blast sideways, kicking up dust in twin plumes. "Hit," Rodriguez's voice cracked over the radio, excitement bleeding through his professional tone. "Center mass, 1,200 meters." Maya didn't celebrate, didn't react. She was already acquiring the second target, her breathing reset, her focus absolute. The 1,400-meter target was partially obscured behind a berm, a realistic combat scenario where the enemy used cover. Only a portion of the steel was visible, maybe 8 inches of exposure. She adjusted her hold, compensating for the increased distance. The wind picked up again, gusting harder now. She waited, counting her heartbeats, feeling the rhythm of the environment. Another low. Boom! The Barrett's report echoed off the compound walls. A second later, the distant clang of impact reached them. "Hit," Rodriguez sounded genuinely impressed now. "Partial target, 1,400 meters, dead center of the exposed area." The SEALs were no longer smirking. Davis had his phone out, recording. Matthews stood with his mouth slightly open. Even the range safety officer had abandoned his usual bored expression. Brennan's arms slowly uncrossed. His eyes narrowed, reassessing everything he thought he knew about the woman kneeling in the dirt. Maya chambered the third round, a .50 BMG cartridge nearly 6 inches long, capable of delivering 13,000 foot-pounds of energy downrange. At 1,600 meters, the round would drop nearly 60 feet from the bore line and drift several feet in the wind. The margin for error was microscopic. She pressed her cheek to the stock, feeling the weapon become an extension of her body. This was the shot that mattered. Anyone could get lucky twice. Consistency defined excellence. Through the scope, the 1,600-meter target appeared impossibly small, a distant speck against the tan desert backdrop. At this range, she wasn't just fighting physics, she was negotiating with it. The wind gusted hard, 20+ miles per hour. She waited. Time became elastic, stretching. 30 seconds passed, 45. "Sir, is she going to?" Davis started to ask. "Shut up," Brennan said quietly. The wind died, not completely but enough, a 6-second window at most. Maya's finger took up slack on the trigger. 4 pounds of pressure, 4.5. The break point was exactly 5 pounds. She knew because she'd said it herself, had pulled this trigger thousands of times. 5 pounds. Boom! The Barrett's massive muzzle brake directed the recoil down and to the sides, but the weapon still rocked back against Maya's shoulder with authority. A plume of dust erupted around her from the concussive blast. She rode the recoil, stayed in the scope watching. At 1,600 meters, the bullet's time of flight was nearly 3 seconds. 3 seconds where wind, gravity, and chaos had their say. 3 seconds that felt like an eternity. The distant steel target rang like a bell. "Hit," Rodriguez shouted, abandoning all pretense of professional detachment. "Holy shit, hit! Center mass at 1,600 meters." The SEALs erupted in exclamations. Matthews actually clapped. Davis was already replaying his video footage. Maya safed the weapon, stood and brushed dust from her knees with businesslike efficiency. No celebration, no triumphant smile, just another day at the office. She turned to face General Brennan, the Barrett cradled professionally in her arms. "Qualification complete, sir. Permission to continue." Brennan stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, a genuine smile spread across his weathered face, not mocking, not condescending, but the smile of one professional acknowledging another. "Continue, Sergeant." He shook his head in amazement. "What exactly did you have in mind?" Maya's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her dark eyes. "Moving targets, sir. Multiple, simultaneous combat scenarios. Show these gentlemen what this weapon system can really do." Rodriguez descended from the tower, his spotting scope slung over his shoulder. He approached Maya directly, extending his hand. "Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, that was some of the finest shooting I've ever witnessed." Maya shook his hand. "Thank you, Chief." "Where the hell did you train?" Before Maya could answer, her jacket shifted slightly as she adjusted her stance. Rodriguez's eyes locked onto something on her collar. His hand froze mid-handshake. His face went absolutely pale. "General," he said, his voice suddenly tight. "Sir, you need to see this. Right now." General Brennan crossed the dusty range in 4 long strides, his boots kicking up small clouds with each step. Rodriguez stood frozen, his eyes fixed on Maya's collar with the intensity of a man who'd just seen a ghost. "What is it, Chief?" Brennan demanded. Rodriguez pointed, his finger trembling slightly. "Sir, her pin, look at her pin." Maya stood perfectly still as Brennan leaned in, his experienced eyes focusing on the small piece of metal affixed to her collar. It was barely an inch across, easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. But once you saw it, once you understood what it meant, everything changed. The pin was unlike anything standard military. Angular and geometric, it featured a distinctive design, a telescopic sight reticle overlaid on a mountain peak, with a single star above and wings spread beneath. The metal was a dark, matte finish. No shine, no flash, nothing that would catch light in the field. Brennan's breath caught in his chest. "Son of a bitch," he whispered. The other SEALs crowded closer, curious about what had stopped their leaders cold. Matthews squinted at the pin, recognition dawning slowly on his face. That can't be." "It is," Rodriguez confirmed, his voice filled with something between awe and disbelief. "The Special Operations Target Interdiction Course pin, SOTIC graduate." Davis frowned. "SOTIC, I've heard of it, but I thought that was just—" "It's real," Brennan interrupted, his eyes never leaving the pin. "Very real, and very few people have earned one." Maya remained at attention, her expression unreadable. She'd known this moment would come. It always did. Brennan stepped back, studying her with completely new eyes. "How many people have graduated SOTIC, Chief?" Rodriguez didn't hesitate. Fewer than 50 in the program's entire history, sir. It's a selection course, not a training course. Most who attempt it wash out in the first week. The attrition rate is 95%. 95, Brennan repeated slowly. He turned to Maya. When did you earn this? 2 years ago, sir. Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Fort Bragg. Brennan ran a hand through his silver-streaked hair. The Special Operations Target Interdiction Course. 18 months of hell. 18 months and 2 days, sir, Maya corrected softly. But who's counting? A ripple of surprised laughter ran through the SEALs. She just cracked a joke, subtle, dry, but there. Brennan didn't laugh. His mind was racing, recalculating everything. SOTIC wasn't just advanced sniper training. It was the pinnacle, a crucible that tested every aspect of a shooter's capability, psychology, and endurance. Physical conditioning that broke CrossFit athletes. Navigation tests through hostile terrain with zero margin for error. Stalking exercises where instructors walked within feet of concealed students, and a single detected movement meant failure. Shooting standards that made Olympic marksmen look like amateurs. And the psychological component, the isolation, the pressure, the simulated scenarios where split-second decisions meant virtual life or death. What was your final score? Rodriguez asked, his professional curiosity overriding protocol. Maya met his eyes. 96%, Chief. The range went dead silent. 96, Matthews repeated in disbelief. The course average for graduates is 72%. Anything above 85 is considered exceptional. Jesus Christ, Davis muttered, staring at Maya like he was seeing her for the first time. Brennan's jaw worked silently. He'd attended SOTIC himself 15 years ago, back when his knees still worked properly and his back didn't ache when it rained. He'd scored an 81 and considered it one of his greatest professional achievements. The course had nearly broken him. You placed in the top 5% of the most elite snipers in the world, he said quietly. And you let me stand here and insult you. Let me question your qualifications. Why? Maya's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Because you didn't know, sir, and because talk is cheap. Results matter. You needed to see what I could do, not what a pin says I should be able to do. Brennan absorbed that, respected it. She was right. In their world, credentials meant less than performance. He'd met plenty of soldiers with impressive paperwork who folded under pressure. But Maya, she'd stood there, taken his dismissal, his condescension, and then systematically proven him wrong with 3 perfect shots at distances that most snipers wouldn't attempt. Tell me about your background, Brennan said, his voice completely different now. No challenge, no superiority, just genuine professional interest. How does someone earn a pin like that? Maya glanced at the assembled SEALs, then back at Brennan. Here, sir, in front of everyone. They're about to be your teammates. They should know who you are. She nodded slowly, gathering her thoughts. I grew up on a ranch in Montana, sir, 3rd generation. My grandfather fought in Korea, my father in Desert Storm. I started shooting at 6 years old, varmints mostly, prairie dogs, coyotes threatening the livestock. By 10, I could hit a moving rabbit at 300 yards with my grandfather's old Winchester. The SEALs listened. Their earlier mockery completely evaporated. My older brother Jake enlisted in the Marines right out of high school, infantry. He deployed to Fallujah in 2006. Her voice caught slightly, the first crack in her composure. He was killed by a sniper, single shot from 800 meters. He never knew what hit him. The weight of that settled over the group like a physical presence. I'm sorry, Brennan said quietly. Maya nodded acknowledgement. I promised myself that day that I'd become the best, that every shot I took would honor his memory, that I'd protect the people he couldn't protect anymore. She straightened. I enlisted at 18, infantry like Jake, made E4 in 2 years. My platoon sergeant noticed I could shoot and recommended me for the designated marksman course. After that, sniper school. After that. SOTIC, Rodriguez finished. Yes, Chief. I applied 3 times before they accepted me. Most applicants are senior NCOs or officers with a decade of experience. I was a 24-year-old specialist. They took me because my instructor scores were perfect and because I wouldn't quit asking. Brennan smiled slightly. Persistence was a trait he valued. The course nearly killed me, Maya continued. Not the shooting, that was the easy part. It was everything else. The carrying a 60-pound pack through the mountains for 20 miles, then immediately shooting precision targets while your hands shake from exhaustion. The lying in a hide site for 72 hours without moving, without sleeping, staying invisible while instructors hunt you with thermal optics. The psychological evaluations designed to find your breaking point. But you didn't break, Matthews observed. No, sir, I didn't. Maya's dark eyes held something fierce now, something unbreakable. Because every time I wanted to quit, I thought about Jake, about the sniper who killed him, about becoming better than that person so I could make sure it never happened to someone else's brother. The confession hung in the desert air, raw and honest. Brennan extended his hand. Welcome to the team, Staff Sergeant Chen. Maya shook it, her grip firm and sure. Rodriguez stepped forward next. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, I owe you an apology. We all do. No apology necessary, Chief. You didn't know. But we should have, he insisted. We should have waited to see what you could do before running our mouths. Davis approached, looking genuinely contrite. I had you pegged as a desk jockey. I was way off base. Most people make that assumption, Maya said without bitterness. I'm used to it. Brennan watched the exchange, seeing his team's respect growing with each moment. This was how bonds formed, through shared understanding, proven competence, and mutual respect earned the hard way. All right, he said, his command voice returning. Show's over. We've got a mission to plan, and now we have a genuine asset. He turned to Maya. I want you in the next brief. I want to hear everything you know about our target area. Yes, sir. As the group began moving back toward the compound, Brennan fell into step beside Maya. That pin, he said quietly, nodding toward her collar. It tells a story, but I have a feeling there's a lot more to your story than 18 months at Fort Bragg. Maya glanced at him, a slight smile touching her lips. There is, sir, but some stories are still classified. Brennan chuckled. Fair enough, we'll get to those eventually. The Barrett M82 rested in its case, still warm from firing. 3 perfect shots, 3 impossible distances. And a general who just learned that excellence doesn't announce itself. It simply performs. The Tactical Operations Center was a climate-controlled oasis in the middle of the desert hell. Banks of computers lined the walls, their screens glowing with satellite imagery, drone feeds, and encrypted communications channels. A massive table dominated the center of the room, covered with laminated maps marked with grease pencil notations in red, blue, and black. General Brennan stood at the head of the table, his original assault plan spread before him, a week's worth of careful planning based on the best intelligence the military could provide. Standard operating procedure for a direct action mission. Infiltrate under darkness, breach and clear, secure the target, exfiltrate before enemy reinforcements arrived. It had always worked before. Maya entered carrying a weathered backpack that had clearly seen better days. The fabric was sun-faded and dust-stained, with repairs visible at the seams. She set it on the table with a heavy thunk that suggested serious weight. The 20 SEALs filed in behind her, taking positions around the table. The atmosphere had changed completely from the morning's briefing. Now they watched Maya with attentive respect, waiting to see what the mysterious sniper would reveal. Gentlemen, Brennan began, Staff Sergeant Chen has been in country for 18 months on a classified assignment. She's going to brief us on what she's learned. He gestured to Maya. The floor is yours. Maya unzipped her pack and began extracting items with methodical precision. First came a rolled bundle of photographs, dozens of them, high-resolution prints taken from various angles and distances. Then notebooks filled with handwritten observations, a tablet loaded with video files, hand-drawn maps marked with details no satellite could capture. She spread the photographs across the table like a dealer laying out cards. Each image showed the target compound from different perspectives, different times of day, different weather conditions. "This is Khalid Mansur's primary residence," Maya began, her voice calm and professional. "The compound sits in the Coast Province, approximately 40 kilometers from the Pakistani border. He's a Tier 1 high-value target responsible for 17 confirmed attacks on coalition forces, including the ambush that killed 3 Marines last month and the IED strike that wounded 12 soldiers from the 101st. Brennan leaned forward, studying the photographs. They were remarkably detailed, closer and clearer than anything his intelligence officers had provided. "These photos," Rodriguez said, picking one up. "How did you get these angles? You'd have to be within 500 meters of the compound." 320 meters, Chief," Maya corrected. "From this position." She unrolled a topographical map and pointed to a ridge overlooking the compound. "I've maintained an observation post there for 6 months, rotating positions every 72 hours to avoid pattern detection." Matthews whistled low. "Alone?" "Yes, sir. Solo reconnaissance. Lower profile, fewer logistics, less chance of compromise." She pulled out a notebook, flipping to pages dense with entries. "Mansur follows a predictable routine. He has 4 wives, 2 live in this compound, 2 in a secondary location 12 kilometers east. He alternates between residences every 3 days. Security detail consists of 22 fighters organized in 3 shifts. Morning shift, 600 to 1400 hours. Afternoon shift, 1400 to 2200 hours. Night shift, 2200 to 600. Brennan's eyes widened. This was information his intelligence network had been trying to gather for months. Maya continued, pulling out more photographs. "Guard positions here, here, and here." She pointed to specific locations. 2 roving patrols with overlapping patterns. They complete a full circuit every 18 minutes. The gap in coverage occurs here. She indicated a blind spot near the compound's north wall for approximately 90 seconds during each rotation. Davis leaned over the table, his earlier skepticism completely gone. "You timed their patrols." "Every day for 6 months, petty officer. I know their patterns better than they do. I know which guards smoke and when they step away for cigarettes. I know which ones are disciplined and which ones cut corners. I know that the guard commander's nephew works the night shift and sleeps through half of it." She pulled up a video file on the tablet, grainy night vision footage of the compound. "This is from 4 nights ago. Watch the east gate at 3:47 hours." The SEALs crowded around as the video played. Right on schedule, a guard stepped away from his post, disappearing into a small structure. "Bathroom break," Maya narrated. "Every night, same time, same guard. He's gone for 4 to 6 minutes. Never less than 4, never more than 6. He has digestive issues, probably from the local water." Brennan shook his head in amazement. "You've documented everything." "Everything, sir." Maya pulled out more materials, sketches of the compound's interior layout, information about Mansur's personal security, details about his vehicles, his communication habits, even his preferred meal times. "Previous operations failed because they didn't understand the cultural dynamics," Maya explained, pointing to a section of her notes. "Mansur isn't just a warlord. He's connected to 3 major tribal networks through marriage and blood ties. The compound isn't just his home. It's a meeting place for tribal elders. Attack on the wrong night and you're not just hitting Mansur. You're killing respected community leaders. That turns the entire region against us." Lieutenant Commander Matthews straightened, understanding dawning. "Political blowback." "Exactly, sir. 2 previous raids failed because they triggered tribal revenge cycles that made the security situation 10 times worse. Maya pulled out a calendar marked with detailed notations. But there's a window. Every 6 weeks, Mansour meets with his financial backers, foreign fighters, not locals. No tribal protection, no cultural complications, just enemy combatants. When's the next meeting? Brennan demanded. 72 hours from now, sir. Thursday night, beginning at 2100 hours. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Brennan looked at his original operational plan, then at Maya's intelligence, and felt a cold knot form in his stomach. His plan had called for a direct assault from the south, straight through the heaviest security, at a time when tribal elders might be present, with no consideration for the political fallout. My plan would have failed, he said quietly, the admission costing him but necessary. Not failed, sir, Maya said diplomatically. It would have had complications. Don't sugarcoat it, Sergeant. Men would have died, and we probably wouldn't have gotten Mansour. She nodded slowly, possibly, sir. Brennan ran a hand over his face, exhaling hard. 25 years of experience, and he'd almost led his team into a disaster because his intelligence was incomplete. Because he hadn't known what this remarkable soldier had discovered through months of patient, dangerous observation. He looked at Maya with new eyes, not just respect now, but genuine admiration. All right, he said, his voice firm with decision. Forget my plan. You've been watching this target for 6 months. You know the ground, the enemy, the timing. How would you take down Mansour? Maya pulled out a clean sheet of paper and began sketching rapidly. 3-phase operation, sir. Phase 1, I establish overwatch here. She marked a position on the ridge with a clear line of sight to the entire compound. Phase 2, a 4-man team infiltrates through this blind spot during the patrol gap. Phase 3, you bring the main force here, staged for rapid assault if needed, but held in reserve. You want to go in with just 4 men? Rodriguez asked incredulously. 4 operators, sir, plus me on overwatch. Small footprint, surgical precision. We go in during the meeting when all the targets are in one room. I neutralize external security from range. The team breaches, secures Mansour and his financiers, and we extract before reinforcements arrive. Brennan studied the sketch, his tactical mind racing through the possibilities. It was bold, risky, but elegant in its simplicity. What's your extraction plan? Maya pointed to a route on the map. We move north, not south. Everyone expects extraction toward our lines. We go the opposite direction to this clearing. She indicated a spot 2 kilometers from the compound where helos can pick us up. Flight time under 4 minutes. That's dangerously close to the Pakistani border, Matthews observed. Yes, sir, which is exactly why they won't expect it. Brennan looked at his senior operators. Rodriguez was nodding slowly. Matthews looked thoughtful. Davis was actually smiling. It could work, Rodriguez said. It's crazy, but it could work. It will work, Chief, Maya said with quiet confidence. Because I've watched them for 6 months. I know how they think, how they react, how they move. Trust me. Brennan met her dark eyes and saw absolute certainty there. Not arrogance, certainty earned through endless hours of observation, through patience and dedication that most operators couldn't match. Okay, he said, we do it your way, but I want contingencies for every phase if anything goes wrong. If anything goes wrong, sir, I've got Barrett overwatch on the entire operation. Nothing gets to your team without going through me first. Brennan smiled, a genuine, warm expression. Then I guess we'd better start planning. We've got 72 hours to get this right. The mission brief continued late into the night, Maya's intelligence transforming a standard assault into a precision operation. And with every detail she provided, every question she answered, the SEAL's respect deepened. She wasn't just a sniper. She was the key to everything. The night sky over Afghanistan was magnificent in its starkness. Millions of stars unmarred by light pollution, the Milky Way a luminous river across the darkness. General Marcus Brennan sat alone on the roof of the operations center, a place he came when command weighed heavy and decisions demanded reflection. He didn't hear Maya approach. She moved like smoke, her footsteps silent on the metal ladder. By the time he noticed her presence, she was already settling onto the concrete barrier beside him, maintaining a respectful distance. "Couldn't sleep either," Brennan asked, not looking at her. "Sleep's overrated, sir." Maya held 2 bottles of water, offering him one. "Thought you might be thirsty." He accepted it with a nod of thanks. For several minutes they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars and listening to the distant generator hum. "I owe you an apology," Brennan finally said, his voice rough. "A real one, not the professional courtesy I gave you in front of the men." Maya turned to look at him. In the starlight, his weathered face showed every year of his 48, every mission, every loss. "You don't," she began. "I do," he interrupted firmly. "I judged you before you walked through that door. I saw your size, your gender, and I made assumptions that had nothing to do with your capability. In my mind, I'd already dismissed you as a diversity hire or political insertion. I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong." He finally met her eyes. "Worse than that, I was unprofessional. I let my bias almost compromise this mission. If we'd gone in with my original plan," he shook his head, "men would have died. The mission would have failed. All because I was too arrogant to consider that someone outside my circle might know better." Maya listened without interrupting, her dark eyes reflecting the stars. "I've been doing this for 25 years, Brennan continued. "I've led teams on 4 continents. I've trained with the best warriors in the world. And somewhere along the way, I started believing my own legend, started thinking I knew everything." A bitter laugh escaped him. "You humbled me today, Sergeant, and I needed it." "Sir," Maya said quietly, "you're one of the most respected operators in the special operations community. Your record speaks for itself. What you did today, admitting a mistake, changing your plan, trusting someone new, that takes more courage than most people have. You're being generous." "I'm being honest." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I've dealt with commanders who would have ignored my intelligence, stuck with their original plan out of pride, and gotten their teams killed rather than admit they were wrong. You're not that kind of leader. You listened. You adapted. That's why your men follow you." Brennan absorbed that, feeling some of the weight lift from his shoulders. "Tell me something," he said. "That first moment in the briefing room when I challenged you, insulted you, you didn't flinch, didn't get angry. Why?" Maya smiled slightly. "Because I've been there before, sir. Different base, different commanders, same script. People see what they expect to see. A woman, 5'5", doesn't fit their mental image of an elite operator. I learned early that getting angry doesn't change minds. Performance does. But it must get exhausting, constantly having to prove yourself." "It does," she admitted. "Every new assignment, every new team, I have to earn respect all over again. The pin helps, but even that," she shrugged. "Some people think it's a mistake or that standards were lowered, so I shoot, I perform, I let the work speak." Brennan studied her profile, the set of her jaw, the distant look in her eyes. "Your brother Jake, tell me about him." Maya was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of old grief carefully managed. "Jake was everything good about our family distilled into one person. Funny, brave, kind. He was the guy who'd give you his last dollar if you needed it, the one who stood up for kids getting bullied in school." She smiled at the memory. "He was also terrible at shooting, couldn't hit a barn from inside it, but he wanted to be a Marine so badly, wanted to serve, to protect people." "How old was he?" 22 when he died, 3 months into his first deployment." Her hands tightened around the water bottle. "Fallujah, 2006. His squad was clearing a building. The sniper was positioned 4 blocks away, had the street zeroed in. Jake never saw it coming. One shot, 800 meters, perfect headshot. Brennan's chest tightened. He'd lost men in Fallujah, knew the streets, the violence, the chaos. The Marine Corps investigator told us the sniper was likely Chechen, foreign fighter, highly trained. They never caught him. Maya's voice remained steady, clinical almost, but Brennan heard the pain underneath. My parents were devastated, my father especially. He'd served, been through combat, thought he understood the risks. But losing a child, nothing prepares you for that. And you decided to become a sniper. I decided to become better than the person who killed my brother, Maya corrected. Better trained, better prepared, better disciplined. So that somewhere, somehow, I could make sure other families didn't get that visit, that knock on the door. She turned to face Brennan directly. Every shot I take, every mission I run, I think about Jake, about the 18-year-old private who's somebody's little brother, the sergeant who's got kids at home, the lieutenant fresh out of West Point with his whole life ahead of him. I think about keeping them alive. That's a heavy burden to carry, Brennan said softly. It's the burden I chose, sir. Maya's eyes hardened with determination, and I'll carry it until I can't anymore. Brennan saw himself in her, the same drive, the same demons, the same need to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. He joined the SEALs after his best friend died in a training accident. Had spent 25 years trying to make that death mean something, trying to save enough lives to balance the scales. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? He asked suddenly. Maya nodded. Sometimes I look at young operators, 23, 24 years old, and I see my friend Marcus. That's who I'm named after. We went through Bud S together. We're going to be teammates forever. He drowned during a training evolution. Equipment malfunction, bad luck, wrong place at the wrong time. Brennan's voice roughened. I kept going because quitting felt like letting him down. And somewhere along the way, the mission became everything. The only thing. Did it help? Maya asked. All those missions, all those years, did it make the loss easier? No, Brennan admitted, but it gave it purpose, made it mean something. He looked at her. I suspect you understand that. I do, sir. They sat in silence again, two warriors bonded by loss and forged by the same fires. Your plan tomorrow, Brennan said eventually. It's solid, brilliant actually, but it puts you in an incredibly exposed position. 1,600 meters might be too far for effective support if things go sideways. It's exactly the right distance, sir. Close enough to cover every angle, far enough to remain undetected. I'll have clear lines of sight to your entire approach, the compound, and the extraction route. And if they locate you? Maya's smile was cold. Then they'll learn why SOTIC graduates are the most dangerous people on Earth. Brennan chuckled despite himself. Fair enough. He stood, offering his hand. Thank you, Maya, for your service, for your skill, for making me a better officer. She shook his hand firmly. Thank you for listening, sir, for giving me a chance after everything. After I was an ass, you mean? I was going to say after the rocky start, but yes, sir, that works too. They both laughed, genuine, tension-releasing laughter that felt good in the Afghan night. As they climbed down from the roof, Brennan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just for the mission, though Maya's plan gave them their best chance at success, but hope that the next generation of warriors, people like Maya Chen who fought for the right reasons, who carried their burdens with grace and turned pain into purpose, would be okay. Get some rest, Sergeant, he said as they reached the operations center. 72 hours will be here before you know it. You too, sir. But neither of them slept much. Warriors rarely do before the storm. Tomorrow would bring final preparations, equipment checks, rehearsals, the calm before violence. And then Operation Nightfall would begin 0147 hours. The Afghan night was cold and moonless, perfect conditions for what was about to unfold. Maya lay prone on the ridge overlooking Khalid Mansur's compound. The Barrett M82 settled on its bipod like a patient predator. She'd been in position for 3 hours, motionless except for controlled breathing and minute adjustments to her scope. The night vision optic painted the world in shades of green, every detail crisp and clear. 1,600 meters downrange, the compound glowed with heat signatures visible through her thermal overlay. Guards moved in predictable patterns, just as she documented for 6 months. Nothing had changed. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. "Overwatch, this is actual," Brennan's voice whispered through her earpiece. "Radio check." "Overwatch reads you Lima Charlie, sir. I have eyes on target area. Counting 21 heat signatures. Guards in position Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie as predicted." "Copy. Assault element beginning approach." Maya's scope swept the terrain between Brennan's team and the compound. 4 shadows moved through the darkness like ghosts: Rodriguez, Davis, Matthews, and Brennan himself. The general had insisted on leading the assault team personally. Maya had expected nothing less. "You're clear to the first waypoint," she reported calmly. "No movement on your route." The team advanced in tactical bounds, covering each other with practiced precision. These were the finest operators in the world, and watching them work was like watching a deadly ballet. Maya's breathing slowed to a shallow rhythm, her finger resting alongside the trigger guard. She tracked the roving patrol on the compound's east side, 2 guards, AK-47s slung casually, walking their circuit with bored indifference. "Roving patrol completing their rotation," she narrated. "Blind spot opening in 30 seconds. Through her scope, she watched the patrol disappear around the corner. Her internal clock counted down: 20 seconds, 15, 10. "Blind spot open. You have 90 seconds. Brennan's team moved fast, covering the exposed ground to the north wall. They pressed against the mud brick barrier, invisible in the darkness. 80 seconds, 70. Then Maya saw it. A heat signature she hadn't accounted for, emerging from the main building, moving toward the north wall. Not a guard. Wrong clothing. A civilian, maybe, or one of Mansur's household staff. "Hold," Maya commanded sharply. "Single person approaching from the main building. Evaluate as non-combatant." "Can you confirm?" Brennan's voice was tense but controlled. Maya zoomed her thermal imaging, studying the figure's gait and posture. Small frame, carrying something, a tray. Kitchen staff bringing late-night tea to the guards. "Confirmed non-combatant. Household staff, 50 meters from your position and closing." Options. Maya's mind calculated angles and timing with cold precision. "He'll pass within 10 meters of your position. If he looks right, he'll see you." "Can you neutralize without lethal force?" She adjusted her aim point, compensating for wind and distance. The Barrett wasn't designed for non-lethal shots, but Maya had trained for exactly this scenario. The staff member carried a metal tray, perfect. "Stand by." Her crosshairs settled on the tray in the man's hands. Distance, 1,583 meters. Wind, 8 miles per hour quartering from the northwest. Temperature drop had affected air density. She made micro-adjustments. The Barrett whispered, a suppressed cough that barely disturbed the night. Downrange, the metal tray exploded from the man's hands with a sound like a car backfire. He stumbled backward, fell on his rear, and sat there in shocked confusion, staring at the destroyed tray. "Target neutralized non-lethally," Maya reported. "He's confused but unharmed. Guards responding to the noise." 2 guards rushed from the compound, shouting in Pashto. They found the staff member sitting in the dirt, babbling about jinn and evil spirits. The guards examined the tray, clearly puzzled by the damage, but saw no threat. After a minute of animated discussion, they helped the man to his feet and escorted him back inside, laughing at his superstitious fear. "Clear," Maya said. "Blind spot reopening in 15 seconds. Brennan's team moved like flowing water, reaching their breach point as the patrol rotation created another window. Rodriguez placed shaped charges on the wall with practiced efficiency, small, precise explosives that would create an entry point without alerting the entire compound. "Charges set," Rodriguez whispered. "Overwatch has full coverage," Maya confirmed, her scope sweeping across every approach. "All guards accounted for. You are green across the board." "Breach in 3, 2, 1. The shaped charges detonated with a muffled crump, blowing a man-sized hole through the mud brick. The team flowed through instantly, weapons up, moving with lethal purpose. Maya's scope tracked their progress through thermal imaging, watching their heat signatures penetrate deeper into the compound. Her role now was to ensure nothing interrupted them. No reinforcements, no surprise patrols, no unexpected threats. The East Guard heard something, turning his head toward the breach point. Maya's crosshairs found him instantly. East Guard alerted, engaging. The Barrett spoke. The guard dropped silently, the .50 caliber round ensuring he'd never raise the alarm. "East Guard down," she reported clinically. "West Patrol unaware you're still clear." Inside the compound, Brennan's team reached the target room where Manser was meeting with his financiers. Through the walls, thermal imaging showed 8 figures seated around a table. Then chaos. A door Maya hadn't accounted for, a hidden entrance suddenly opened. 4 additional fighters emerged, moving to flank Brennan's team. "4 tangos, you're 6 o'clock," Maya's voice cut through the radio. "Hidden entrance, south wall." The numbers had just shifted from favorable to deadly. Brennan's team spun, weapons tracking, but they were caught in a fatal funnel. Enemies ahead in the meeting room, enemies behind from the hidden entrance. "I don't have the angle," Maya said, her scope searching desperately. The compound walls blocked her shot. But then she saw it, a second-floor window, partially open. A desperate shot through multiple barriers, requiring perfect calculation of bullet penetration and deflection. "Stand by," she said, her voice ice-calm despite the pressure. "I have a solution." Her crosshairs settled on the window. Behind it, she could just make out the heat signatures of the 4 fighters. The Barrett's .50 BMG round could penetrate brick, concrete, even light armor, but shooting through a window at an angle, compensating for deflection. She exhaled slowly. Mathematics and instinct merged into pure calculation. The Barrett roared 4 times in rapid succession. Each massive round punched through the window, through the interior wall, and found its target. 4 heat signatures dropped in sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Tango's down," Maya reported, her voice steady as stone. "You're clear to proceed." "Jesus Christ," Davis breathed over the radio. "Did you just shoot through a wall?" "Through 2 walls, petty officer. Proceed with the mission." Brennan's team breached the meeting room. Through her thermal imaging, Maya watched the assault unfold, swift, violent, and surgically precise. 7 seconds from breach to secure. Manser and his financiers were flex-cuffed before they could react. "Jackpot," Brennan's voice confirmed. "We have the package, beginning extraction." Maya's scope swept the compound perimeter, checking for response. Lights were coming on in nearby buildings, shouts in the distance, vehicle engines starting. "You've got company inbound," she warned. 3 vehicles approaching from the southeast, ETA 2 minutes. "Copy, moving to extraction point." The assault team emerged from the compound carrying their prisoners, moving fast toward the northern extraction point. Maya tracked the approaching vehicles, calculating intercept points. "Vehicles will reach your position in 90 seconds. I can delay them." Negative, Overwatch. Conserve ammunition and maintain position. Air assets inbound. But Maya saw the problem. The vehicles were moving faster than anticipated. They'd reach the extraction point before the helicopters arrived. Brennan's team would be caught in the open, loaded down with prisoners, facing superior numbers. She made the call. The Barrett sang its deadly song. The lead vehicle's engine block exploded, the massive round punching through metal like paper. The truck swerved violently, blocking the road. The second vehicle crashed into it, creating a twisted barricade of metal and confusion. The third vehicle stopped, fighters piling out. Maya's scope found them one by one. "This is for Jake," she whispered, and began the grim work of keeping her teammates alive. Part 8. A new understanding extended 1,000 words. The distinctive thunder of approaching Black Hawks filled the night air as Maya continued her deadly work. Through her scope, she tracked enemy fighters scattering from the destroyed vehicles, their confusion buying precious seconds for Brennan's team. One hostile raised an RPG launcher, aiming at the extraction point where the helicopters would land. Maya's crosshairs found him. The Barrett's suppressed report was swallowed by the sound of rotor blades. The fighter collapsed, the RPG clattering unfired to the ground. "Overwatch, be advised, your danger close to the extraction point," the helicopter pilot's voice crackled. "Pull back to minimum safe distance." "Negative," Maya replied calmly, her eye never leaving the scope. "Maintain your approach, I have this." Two more fighters emerged from cover, trying to flank Brennan's position. Maya shifted smoothly, 2 shots in 3 seconds. Both targets dropped. The Black Hawks roared in, their door gunners adding suppressive fire to Maya's precision shots. Dust erupted in massive clouds as they touched down. Brennan's team sprinted for the birds, half dragging their prisoners. "Overwatch collapsed to secondary extraction," Brennan ordered over the chaos. "We're away, get out of there." Maya was already moving. She'd rehearsed this 100 times in her mind: break down, pack, displace. Her hands flew through the motions with practiced efficiency. The Barrett came apart, each component sliding into her pack in under 90 seconds. She moved down the ridge using a route she'd scouted weeks ago, staying low, staying fast. Behind her, enemy fighters reached her hide site 2 minutes too late, finding only disturbed dirt and 3 spent .50 caliber casings she'd deliberately left behind. A message: "I was here, I owned you, and you never saw me coming." 20 minutes later, a little bird helicopter swooped in to extract her from her secondary position. The pilot gave her a thumbs up as she climbed aboard, the Barrett case secured across her back. "Hell of a show, Sergeant," he shouted over the rotors. "Rodriguez says you saved their asses." Maya just nodded, exhausted and riding the post-mission adrenaline crash. She closed her eyes during the flight back, feeling every hour of the 72-hour operation in her bones. The sun was rising over forward operating base Sentinel when Maya's helicopter touched down. She expected to debrief and collapse into her rack for 12 hours of unconsciousness. Instead, she found the entire SEAL team waiting on the tarmac. As she stepped off the little bird, 20 operators came to attention in crisp formation. General Brennan stood at their front, his fatigues dusty and his face showing the strain of the night's operation, but his posture was parade ground perfect. Maya stopped, confused, her Barrett case in hand. "Staff Sergeant Maya Chen," Brennan's voice rang out formally, "front and center." She walked forward, muscle memory snapping her to attention before him. Brennan's weathered face broke into a rare, genuine smile. "Gentlemen," he addressed his team while looking directly at Maya, "I want to tell you about a mistake I made. Several days ago, an operator walked into my briefing room, and I dismissed her before she opened her mouth. I saw her size, her gender, and I made assumptions that had nothing to do with her actual capabilities." The SEALs listened in respectful silence. Some glanced at Maya with knowing smiles. "I challenged her qualifications. I questioned whether she belonged on this team. I was wrong." Brennan's voice grew stronger. "Last night, this soldier provided the intelligence that made our mission possible. She made shots I've never seen in 25 years of combat operations. She saved our lives, multiple times, with precision and calm under pressure that would make most operators look like amateurs. He stepped closer to Maya, his steel-gray eyes warm with respect. I learned something important. Excellence doesn't care about your gender, your size, or what people expect you to be. Excellence is measured in results, in skill, in dedication. He extended his hand. You honored us by accepting this assignment, Sergeant, and I'm formally requesting that you be permanently attached to this unit for all future operations. Maya shook his hand, her throat tight with emotion she wouldn't let show. I accept, sir. It would be an honor. Rodriguez started a slow clap. Then Matthews joined. Then Davis. Within seconds, the entire formation was applauding, genuine and thunderous. Some operators whistled, others grinned. Maya felt something break loose inside her, the constant weight of proving herself, the exhausting cycle of earning respect over and over. For the first time in her career, she felt like she truly belonged. Dismissed, Brennan ordered. Get some rack time. We debrief at 1400 hours. As the team dispersed, sharing war stories and rehashing the night's action, Brennan gestured for Maya to follow him. They walked to the armory where she could secure her equipment. She laid the Barrett case on the workbench, running her hand along its scarred surface. Brennan watched her with curiosity. May I? He asked, gesturing to the rifle. Of course, sir. He opened the case reverently, lifting the Barrett with the respect one warrior shows another's weapon. As he examined it, his eyes caught something etched into the stock, words carved into the composite material with careful precision. Por los que no pueden hablar, he read aloud, his pronunciation rough but understandable. What does it mean? Maya stepped beside him, her fingers tracing the Spanish inscription. For those who cannot speak, she translated softly, it's my promise, to my brother Jake, to the Marines who died in that Fallujah street, to every soldier who didn't make it home. Her voice caught slightly. Every shot I take, every mission I run, I'm their voice. I speak for them through my actions. Brennan understood immediately. It was the same covenant he'd made decades ago to his friend Marcus. The same sacred promise every warrior carries, to make their sacrifice mean something, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That's a heavy burden, he said quietly. It's the burden that makes me good at what I do, sir. Maya met his eyes. Pain can destroy you or you can forge it into purpose. I chose purpose. Brennan nodded slowly, seeing the unbreakable core that had carried her through SOTIC's crucible, through 18 months of solo reconnaissance, through last night's chaos. She'd turned grief into excellence, loss into lethal competence. Your brother would be proud, he said. I hope so, sir. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two warriors who understood each other completely despite coming from different worlds. Get some rest, Maya, Brennan finally said, using her first name for the first time. You've earned it. Thank you, sir, for everything, for listening, for giving me a chance. No, Brennan corrected gently. Thank you, for teaching an old dog that he still has things to learn, for making this team better, for being exactly who you are. 3 hours later, Maya sat in the mess hall with Rodriguez, Davis, and Matthews, eating the best bad food the Army could provide. The conversation flowed easily, war stories, technical discussions about long-range shooting, good-natured arguments about equipment preferences. She belonged here, finally, completely, without qualification. Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, grinning. So, Chen, what's the longest shot you've ever made? And don't say 1,600 meters because we all know you can do better. Maya smiled, a rare expression of genuine happiness crossing her face. Chief, if I told you that, I'd have to kill you. Classified, huh? Let's just say the Barrett has stories it can't tell. They all laughed and Maya felt the last wall come down. She was no longer the outsider proving herself. She was part of the team, one of the operators. That evening, as the sun set over the Afghan mountains painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Maya cleaned her Barrett with meditative focus. Each component was inspected, cleaned, oiled, and carefully reassembled. She thought about Jake, about the journey from that Montana ranch to this forward operating base, about the choices that led her here, the pain that forged her, the purpose that sustained her. The Barrett M82 sat before her, ready for the next mission, ready to speak for those who could not speak. And Maya Chen, SOTIC graduate, elite sniper, and now permanent member of the finest special operations team in the world, was ready too. Excellence had spoken. The
Ma cosa
message
vogliamo
had been
fare? Tipo un
received.
abbonamento e
The
quando
end.
scade poi ti trovo che mi esci dall'armadio, la prendi e la porti dentro un'arnia? O una roba, un prezzo e si va? È un prezzo e si fa. Non stiamo facendo contrattazione di donne, stiamo facendo contrattazione di fidanzate, lasciateci in pace. Sì, sì, è bella. E non è molto bellina, è illegale. Samuel qualcosa.